Young historians, the fiery trial is certainly heating up as we went through a lot of the edge of the precipice in class on Tuesday and Wednesday. Real quick, I wanted to review a little bit about what we did in class. I wanted to give you an overview of the Lincoln Douglas debates, Harper's Ferry, and then, of course, the election of 1860, the most important election in American history. And then I wanted to get you set up for your activity today with the substitute teacher. Okay, so if you've got your Edge of the Precipice notes handy, you can jot down some things in there. I still haven't decided if I'm going to have a little quiz on this. You're definitely going to be drawing an editorial cartoon about the Edge of the Precipice, so it wouldn't hurt if you had some ideas that you could put down on paper and then come up with some cool ideas for how to make a comment about this content. So our essential question is, could the U.S. have been talked off the edge of the precipice in the 1850s? I use the analogy of sometimes of like a VCR or DVD player. Did these events press pause? Did they press stop? Did they press rewind? Or did they press fast forward? That would be a really cool idea for an editorial cartoon, except you can't use it because it wouldn't be original because I came up with it. Just like having the United States on the edge of a cliff would be a really good idea for an editorial cartoon, but you can't use that either because we did it in class. All right? We started by playing the Gimkit about regional differences, knowing that the North and the South had a whole lot of stuff going on that were divisive. But the thing that was in the middle, of course, was slavery. We also talked about how we have different people within the two areas. You've got moderates on both sides who really want to keep the United States together, probably believing in popular sovereignty or whatever, but keep the U.S. together. In the North, you got your free soilers who don't want slavery to expand, either because they think it's immoral or because they want the Western lands to be for white people. And then you get your abolitionists. We already know those are people who wanted to end slavery everywhere. In the South, you're going to get your realists who probably weren't enslavers because most people in the South, most whites in the South were not enslavers, but they were realistic. They realized that slavery was very good for the economy in the South and it played a big role in their political power as well. And then you get your Southern rebels, the fire eaters, the enslavers. They were the slaveocracy. They had the power and they wanted their what they felt was their right to slavery and their states' rights to protect them anywhere in the United States. We started off with the Compromise of 1850. We actually started with the Missouri Compromise, in which the Louisiana Territory was split and there was a line drawn. The Missouri Compromise line, you can see it in the center of our image right here. But then the United States got all this land over here. So what's going to happen with all this land? Well, Texas became a state. Wisconsin also became a state. Arkansas became a state, Florida became a state, so did Iowa, and I believe it was Indiana became a state, or maybe it was Illinois. Anyways, there's a balance in 1850. There's 15 free states and 15 slave states. But because of manifest destiny, the United States is going to get California, New Mexico, and Utah. And a whole bunch of people are going to move out to California because of the gold rush, and they're going to want to become a state. That will upset the balance between the free states and the slave states. So Henry Clay steps in, and he offers a compromise to try to appease both the North and the South. California would become a free state. That's something that the North would like. The Utah Territory and New Mexico Territory would become their slavery would be determined by popular sovereignty. That's something that probably was more along the lines of Southerners because slavery could spread. The slave trade was going to be outlawed in Washington, D.C., not slavery itself, but the slave trade. And then there was going to be a much more strict fugitive slave law that's really going to affect the upper Midwest right here. That's something that the South wanted. The question I asked was, does this compromise press pause? Does it press stop? Does it press rewind? Does it press fast forward? Is the Civil War inevitable? The most controversial aspect of the Compromise of 1850 was that Fugitive Slave Act. This actually brought the ideas of slavery up to the North, including Wisconsin. So did an important book that was written at that time, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Many of you wrote about that in your antebellum slavery reflection. But the Fugitive Slave Act basically said that everybody in the North, definitely all government officials, but pretty much everybody had to help capture and return enslaved people to their homes, we'll say their owners. I just hate using that word. And this is something that really, really, really divided a lot of people in the North and got some people really upset with slavery. It's going to divide the North and South even more. Then 1854 rolls around and we get the Kansas-Nebraska Act. We thought we had a compromise. We thought we had things kind of settled. But Stephen Douglas of Illinois wants to make a railroad. Is that railroad going to go through the South? No, he'd rather have it go from his home of Illinois, like this. Problem is that Nebraska and Kansas were unorganized. So in order to organize them, in order to get federal government out there and to protect railroads workers from the